Hello, hello. Hey guys. What's up, Losh? Glad you're here. Hey, Wing Chun. I'm glad you're here. What's up, Hope? Nice of you to join. Hey, Rude Noise. How's it going? Hey, Nikki. How are you doing? Nikki, you hope I have real food for snack today? Kind of. A little bit. Hope you have pandan sweet sticky rice and mango. That sounds so good. What's up, Malik? How you doing? All right. Shall we get started with a little Wordle? All right. All right. How fast do you think, guys? How fast can I do it? All right. Whoa. So good. Okay. All right. Can I do it in the third word? Let's do it. UAP. What word has U, E, and an I? Like setup? E and an I. Yup. A sup. If there's a UP here. A sup. E up. E up. E up. Doesn't sound like anything. Layup. IE. EP? Concept. Kept. Wept. What has a U, an E, and an I? I'm thinking it's UP, right? Maybe it's a QU? Quiet? Quiet. 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 Ugh. EI. Maybe IEP? U. What is what is this word? Is quiep a word? It is not a word. Drip. Drip. IEXUP. Erup. Erup. EIUP. Maybe U E EIU UP. What is this word? Huh. C B U U E I. Yeah. Yeah. Up. Or EU up. Wait. Stirrup. EU up. Oh no, it's hard. Bloop. Bloop. Nope. Group. Group. Okay. What is this? What is this? Huh. Fey. Yep. I-E. C. D. D-E-I-U. Die. Die up. Y up. Quy up. High up. Oop. Loop. Coop. Goop. What is this word? EUP. Oh god. Okay, then we gotta eliminate some words, okay? F-E-N-C. Fence. Um, Bench. Bench. B-E-N-C-H. Bench. Okay, E's not there. E here. E-I. Ike. I'll. I loop. Ew. Loo. Ew. Ew. I. What is this stupid word? Oh no. It's gonna take forever. 8. 8. E-I and a U. How about U-I-E? X-I-E-U-P. Ha. F-I. I-U. E-I-U. E-I. E. 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 I. U. P. XP. Oh. I-D. I something. E-U-P. Up. Is it I-P? E-I-P? Eep. Eep. Lape. Vape. Vip. E. I-P. Emit. Emip. Equip. Wait. EQ. Right? Ah! What a stupid word. Equip. What the hell is that? Huh. Phew. Ah. That Q messed me up. The Q is in there. All right. Oh, Malik, good job. You got it. Now, can we do this? Is the question. All right. Equip. Quiep. Is that a word? Quiep. Quape. Sword. Dam. Sky. Fight. Attack. Mace. Knight. Horse. Fly. Wear. Wield. Book. Snack. Rules. Whoa! Rules. Rule. Protocol. Procedure. How about a system? Guide. Crown. Protocol. Like guidelines. Whoa! Guideline. Instruction. Rules. Standard. Huh. We had procedure, maybe procedures. I don't think it would do. It usually doesn't have, it doesn't give us like plural words. Systemic. Guidelines, rule, warnings, order, guidelines, commandments, commandment, guidelines, laws, legislation, code. I like that. Codex. Okay. Code, guideline, protocol, agreement. Oh, pretty good. Agree. What about a contract? What about negotiation? Okay, not bad. Negotiate. Principle. Oh! Moral. Statement. Principle. Deal. Principle. Interest. Strict. Guideline. Main. Primary. Credit. No. Oath. I like that. Swear. Restriction. Asset. Principle, guideline, protocol. Residual. An edict. Principle. Area. Constitution. Oh, not bad. Regiment. Regiment. Document. Paper. Treaty. Ooh. Regimen. Doctrine. Proclamation. Set of principles, set of guidelines, a set of protocols, principle. Code we had. Alignment. Like a moral alignment. Principle, ethics, plan. How about scheme? Codex we tried. Fundamental. Oh. Basic. Basics. Secret. Oof. Oh, so close, guys. Blocks. We had agreement. Principle. Contract. We try that. Humanitarian? Why? Humanitarian. Manual. Oh, automatic. Documentation? No. Seems to be a legal line of thought. Map. Illegal. Roadmap. Oh, I like that. Whoa, it's very close. Road. Amendment. Roadmap. Maybe a blueprint. Outline. Blueprint. Why doesn't it give a number? Because it doesn't know the word roadmap, I guess. Number. A roadmap. A outline. A plan. A schedule. A project. An atlas. Contract we tried. I think we did. Yeah. Itinerary. Itinerary. I like that. Nope. Game plan. Is that one word? Wow. A blueprint. A print. A guide. Oof. Playbook. I like that. Nope. Structure. Okay. Maybe a wireframe. What's that thing at the beginning of the paperwork you do, like abstract? Syllabus? Oh, I like that. Foundation. Foundation! Base. Basis. Glossary. Roadmap is so close. Based. Road. Maybe a road. Copy. A blueprint. An abstract. A paper. Oh, so close. Blueprint. Guidelines. Map. We had a map, right? Trace. Time frame. Oh, time frame is pretty. Time. Guide we tried. Like a block. Roadmap. What? What can it be? Plan we tried, I think. Yeah. Strategy. Okay. Tactic. Template. Oh, template is so close. Templates. Protractor. We did say outline. We did, I think. Yeah. A template. Oof. Cookie cutter. Is that one word? Nope. What the hell is this? Is this allowed? Why is this an ad? Maybe I should do this. Framework. Ah, you got it. Good job. Why didn't I think of that? Framework. So close. Alright. Good job, Nikki. Nicely done, guys. Nicely done. All right. I have this today. Pretz. And it has a, I guess it's tomato flavored. Okay, we'll see. We shall see. Oops. Ah. All right. It's like marinara sauce. Crunchy. I like it. Tomato flavor. Not bad, actually. It's like a 8.3 out of 10. Oh. Pleasantly surprised. The packaging doesn't look that good, but it's pretty good. Like a little salty. A lot of marinara sauce. Wing Chun, you had it before? Yeah, it's pretty good. All right. You all ready? All right. All right. What happened last week? So last week, if you remember, there was a fight between the Taoist Chu Chu Chi, the Seven Freaks, and that monk Jiao Mu. Now the monk died trying to attack Duan Tiande. Duan Tiande, he runs away with Li Ping. The Seven Freaks, now they want a rematch with Chu Chu Chi, to show who's better. Now Chu Chu Chi, he is a pretty smart dude. He comes up with a plan to kill two birds with one stone. He challenges them to a rematch, not between them, but between the children of the widows, Li Ping and Bao Xi Ruo. So he says that he'll rescue Bao Xi Ruo and train her son, Yang Kang. The Seven Freaks will rescue Li Ping and train her son. Her son is named Guo Jing. And when the children reach the age of 18, they will have a duel. Okay, and the duel will settle the score between Chu Chu Chi and the Seven Freaks. The Seven Freaks, they hear this and they're just all too excited, and they go off to find Li Ping. They chase Duan Tiande a long ways north because Li Ping keeps leaving clues for the Seven Freaks to follow. So, like Duan Tiande, he just couldn't find a way to get away from the Seven Freaks. Okay, they're there wherever he goes. So they go a long way up north. Okay, he's trying to run away. They're caught by some soldiers and they're brought way far north. But they run into this battle, and Li Ping is separated. She actually is crawling around. She's in the middle of a snowstorm and a sandstorm at the same time. And in the middle of all of this, she gives birth. Okay, luckily, she and the baby survive, and they settle down to a life in the northern steppes. Okay. Now, and then it's here that the story has a time skip. It time skips, and we see Guo Jing. He's 6 years old already. Okay, Guo Jing, he sees a battle while he's hiding in the bushes or whatever. And the warlord on one side is none other than Temujin, or Genghis Khan. Okay. And that's where we left off. How's that? Oh, true. Yeah, she kept calling her 6-year-old stupid. Okay. But a good kid, but stupid. All right. So, chapter 3, part 2. I see. A bit dumb. All right. 2 mornings later, Li Ping went off to the marketplace 30 li away with two handmade wool blankets. Guo Jing was guarding the sheep out in front of his house when his mind wandered back to what he had seen 2 days ago. Deciding to have a little fun, he raised his shepherding whip and began waving it around, riding on his little horse, shouting at the top of his lungs, and moving the flock around. He felt just like a general commanding his own troops into battle. Oh, wait. Oops. Just trying to see if you were paying attention. But he was smart enough to stay hidden? That is true. Just as he was really getting into it, he suddenly heard the sound of horse hooves from the east. A solitary horse slowly approached with a person lying on its back. The horse got close and stopped, causing the man on the back of the horse to lift his head and look up. The sight of the man made Guo Jing shriek in fear. The man's face was covered with mud, dirt, and blood. It was the general in black that he had seen the day before yesterday. In his left hand was the bottom half of what had been a saber, which was stained purplish red with blood. The bow and arrows that he had fought so many foes with were gone, It looked as if he had another encounter with his enemies after escaping 2 days ago. His left cheek had been slashed open and was bleeding profusely. His horse was injured as well. His body shuddered as his bloodshot eyes fell upon Guo Jing, muttering in a hoarse and exhausted voice, "Water! Water! Some water!" Remember when he read a whole chapter like that? No, that never happened. I don't remember. I'm always perfect with the screen switching, always. Remember when I had the audio off? I talked for like 10 minutes. Whoops. That was pretty weird. That's pretty funny. Guo Jing immediately ran into the house and brought out a bowl of water from the water tub. That man grabbed it out of Guo Jing's hand and drank it all up in one gulp. "More!" he demanded. Guo Jing retrieved another bowl for him. He drank half before the blood dripping off his face turned the water red. The man let out a loud laugh. Then suddenly his face twitched, and he fell off his horse and fainted. Guo Jing panicked. He didn't know what to do. Luckily, the man came to after a while. "Give my horse some water, too," he said. "And do you have anything to eat?" Guo Jing brought out some roasted lamb for him and got a whole bucket of water for the horse. After gulping down the hearty meal, the man was thoroughly refreshed and got up off the ground. "Thanks, brother," he said as he took off the gold bracelet he had around his wrist and held it out at Guo Jing. "Here, take it." Guo Jing shook his head. "Mom said that we should take care of guests and not ask for anything in return." The man laughed at this and commented, "You are a good kid." He put the bracelet back onto his wrist, tore off half his sleeve, and began to attend to both his and his horse's wounds. Suddenly, from the east came the faint rumblings of horses galloping. The man's face dropped. "Oh, looks like they're not going to let me go." The two of them ran out of the door and saw that the land in the distance was covered by dust kicked up by countless horses heading this way. "Kid, do you have a bow and arrow in the house?" the man asked. "Yeah, sure," Guo Jing replied just before darting back into the house. Hearing that, the man looked somewhat relieved, but that soon changed when he saw that Guo Jing had just brought out his own little toy bow and arrow. Whoops. He let out a little laugh before frowning. "I need the fighting kind, the big one." Guo Jing merely shook his head. The pursuers were getting closer. Their banners could be faintly seen waving in the distance. The man figured that with his horse injured, he wouldn't be able to get away. While hiding is always dangerous, he had no alternative. "I can't beat them all by myself, so I've got to hide," he said, turning to Guo Jing. He looked around and noticed that there was nowhere to hide in or around the hut. In desperation, he settled on the big pile of grass outside. "I'm going to hide in here. Could you chase my horse as far away as you can? Be sure to find a good place to hide for yourself, too, and don't let them catch you," he instructed as he dug himself into the grass pile. Traditionally, as soon as the scorching summer had passed, Mongolians would immediately cut down all the available tall grass and pile them up. During the harsh winters, Mongolians relied on these grass piles for feed for the animals, as well as fire for warmth. Often, these grass piles would be bigger than their gurs. The man was actually very well hidden inside the grass pile, and probably wouldn't be discovered without careful inspection. Guo Jing turned and gave the black horse a couple of good lashes, causing the horse to gallop off. Only until it was almost entirely out of sight did it finally stop and started to graze. Guo Jing jumped onto his little horse and took off to the west. The pursuers, noticing that someone was there, sent 2 advanced scouts forward to give chase. Guo Jing's pony wasn't fast, and the two scouts soon caught up. Kid, did you see a man riding a black horse around here? One of them demanded. Guo Jing didn't know how to tell a lie, so he couldn't find the words to answer the question. The two scouts asked several more times, but there was still no answer. Let's take him to the first prince, one of them finally suggested, seeing a blank-looking face on the kid. The two scouts took hold of Guo Jing's reins and led him back to the hut. I just won't say, Guo Jing made up his mind on the way back. A good number of Mongolian soldiers surrounded a tall and skinny young man. Guo Jing recognized the face. He had seen him on the hill 2 days before. Noticing that the soldiers were all obeying his commands, Guo Jing decided that he was an enemy of that black-robed general. What did the little kid say? The first prince shouted. This kid is scared stiff. He hasn't said a word. The first prince looked around and suddenly noticed the black horse grazing in the distance. Is that his horse? Go and bring it here, he quietly ordered. 10 Mongols split into 5 groups and quietly surrounded the horse. By the time the horse noticed and tried to escape, it had already run out of places to run. It ran out of places to run? Isn't this Jebe's horse? The first prince asked rhetorically in an arrogant voice. Yes, sir, it is, the soldiers answered in unison. The first prince, using his riding whip, lashed the side of Guo Jing's head and shouted, Where is he hiding? Spit it out. Think you can fool me? Hiding in the pile of dried grass, Jebe? I'm going to say Jebe, held his broken saber tightly. Seeing Guo Jing getting hit and a huge welt immediately starting to develop on his head, his heart began to beat wildly. He knew that this was Temujin's eldest son, Zhou, whose cruelty and savagery was famous throughout the entire steppe. He figured that the kid would undoubtedly be frightened into telling where he was hiding, and then he would have to jump out and fight to the death. Lady Koi, you think the kid is smarter than his education has been able to accommodate? Maybe. Are you calling his mom dumb? Because his mom is the one teaching him. Guo Jing wanted to cry, but trying with all his might, he kept back the tears. Holding his head up high, he asked, Why did you hit me? I didn't do anything wrong. He knew kids only get beaten when they did something wrong. Trying to be tough, huh? Zhou shouted angrily before he whipped Guo Jing again, making him burst out crying. By now, other soldiers had already given Guo Jing's house a thorough search. 2 of the soldiers even poked around the grass pile with their spears. Luckily, the grass pile was huge, and they didn't hit Jebe. The horse is still here. It couldn't have gone far. Kid, are you going to tell or not? Zhou continued as he lashed at Guo Jing's head 3 more times. Guo Jing reached out and tried to grab the riding whip, but how could he? Suddenly, they heard horns sounding from afar. The Khan is coming, all of the soldiers shouted as Zhou stopped and turned to greet his father. Father! He shouted as an army with Temujin at the head came galloping in. Oh no, I made his voice too close to his father's. The wound that Jebe inflicted on Temujin turned out to be severe. During the battle, Temujin was able to fight through it, but after the battle was over, he actually fainted several times from the pain. His trusted general Jebe and third son Ogedai took turns sucking the bad blood clots out of his wound. The officers and his sons waited by his bedside for an entire night until he was no longer in mortal danger. The next morning, swearing to catch Jebe and quarter him so as to avenge his wound to the Khan, the Mongol soldiers spread out in all directions. By dusk, on the second day, a small scout team finally ran into Jebe, but was decimated by him. However, Jebe was injured as well in the melee. Upon hearing the news, Temujin immediately sent his eldest son Jochi after him, before taking his other sons with him as a rear guard. "Father, we found that bastard's horse," Jochi reported, pointing at the black horse. "I don't want the horse. I want him," Temujin replied. "Yes, father, we will find him," Jochi answered before returning to Guo Jing's side. Pulling out his saber, he swung it in the air a couple of times and shouted, "Are you going to tell me?" His face covered in blood from the earlier beating, Guo Jing actually got feistier and shouted back, "I'll never tell! I'll never tell!" From that response, Temujin noted how innocent the kid was, replying with, "I'll never tell," instead of "I don't know," giving away the fact that he knew where Jebe was hiding. So he turned to Ogedai and whispered, "Go and trick it out of him." Smiling, Ogedai walked up to Guo Jing, removed 2 gold-studded peacock feathers from his helmet, and said, "If you tell me, this is yours." "I'll never tell," Guo Jing still replied. "Let loose the dogs," Chagatai, Temujin's second son, ordered, as the soldiers immediately brought forth 6 huge hunting dogs. Oh no. Mongolians loved to hunt, and all of the aristocrats or people of wealth owned hunting dogs and falcons. Chagatai especially loved dogs, and his search for Jebe presented a perfect use for his dogs. So he ordered the dogs be taken around the black horse a couple of times before letting them loose to find where Jebe was hiding. The dogs barked wildly as they ran in and out of the hut repeatedly. You heard it pronounced Jeb, based on I can't read. A real Commander Temujin fought. Gotcha. Alright, so I'll just call it Jeb then. Guo Jing had never met Jeb before. Jeb sounds like some southern dude. Guo Jing had never met Jeb before, but 2 days ago he had greatly admired his bravery and skill on the battlefield. Being whipped several times by Jochi had brought out Guo Jing's natural stubbornness and feisty nature. He called his shepherd dog. By now, Chagatai's hunting dogs were getting very close to the grass pile. So, on Guo Jing's command, the shepherd dog positioned itself between the grass pile and the hunting dogs, not letting any of them get closer. Chagatai gave a loud shout, and all 6 huge hunting dogs leapt forward, and the air was quickly filled with a cacophony of dog barking as the 7 dogs fought. Oh no! 6 against 1. The shepherd dog, smaller to begin with and battling 1 against 6, was quickly covered with bite marks, but still fought back ferociously, not backing down one bit. Guo Jing was cheering his shepherd dog on loudly. He was cheering his shepherd dog on loudly between sobs. Seeing this, Temujin, Ogedai, and everyone present knew that Jeb must be hiding in the grass pile. So they just smiled and enjoyed the show of the dogfight. Furious, Jochi began to hit Guo Jing with his riding whip again, causing him to roll around in pain. He rolled next to Jochi's legs before suddenly jumping up and grabbing his right leg. Jochi tried to throw him off with a kick, but the boy's grip was surprisingly strong, and he couldn't get him off. The other sons, seeing their older brother in such an awkward and embarrassing state, began to laugh loudly. Even Temujin began to snicker a bit. His face flushing blood red, Jochi unsheathed his saber and brought it down toward Guo Jing's head. Just as it looked as if the kid was about to be hit, a broken saber suddenly struck out from inside the grass pile. Clang! The two sabers collided, and Chochi, feeling his hand go numb, almost dropped his saber. The soldiers let out a collective gasp as Jebe jumped out of the pile. Pulling Guo Jing behind him with his left hand, he sneered. "Bullying a little kid? Have you no shame?" In the series, Jebe is pronounced with 2 syllables. Jebe. Oh. You know what? I like Jebe. Okay, we're just gonna go with Jebe. Unless he's like a long, like he's gonna stick around for a long time. Then we'll find out what's the right way to say it. Okay. The soldiers immediately readied their spears and surrounded Jebe. Seeing that he had nowhere to run, Jebe tossed aside the broken saber. Chochi charged at him and landed a punch on his chest, with Jebe not even trying to protect himself. "Kill me, now!" he shouted, but then he added with a quiet and heavy voice, "Pity that I cannot die at the hands of a true hero." "What did you say?" Temujin cut in. "To die on the battlefields, at the hands of the hero that beat me, is dying with no regrets. But today the eagle has fallen onto the ground and was bitten to death by ants." Jebe replied with fury in his eyes and let out a tremendous howl. Chaghatai's hunting dogs, who had collectively pinned Guo Jing's shepherd dog onto the ground and were relentlessly biting it, jumped up at the howl and ran away whimpering behind their trainers. "Khan, don't let this little bastard boast like that." A person stepped out from beside Temujin and shouted, "Let me duel with him." "All right, have a duel with him," Temujin replied, happily discovering that the man was Bogurchi. "We don't have much of anything else, but we do have some heroes." "I'm going to kill you by myself so that you can die with no regrets." Bogurchi took a few steps forward and shouted at Jebe. "Who the hell are you?" I've never heard of you before. "Who the hell are you?" Jebe shouted back, noticing that the challenger was very well built and had a very deep and loud voice. Ah, crap. I gave him a high voice. "I'm Bogurchi. I'm Bogurchi. Heard of me before?" A cold feeling shot through Jebe's heart. So, this is him. Rumors say that Bogurchi is the hero of heroes among the Mongols. Not wanting to reply, he simply shot a sideways look and humphed. "You boast about your skills with the bow and arrow, and others even call you Jebe. Why don't you and this friend of mine have a little shooting contest?" Temujin declared. In Mongolian, Jebe meant both arrow and divine archer. Jebe had another name, but because of his incredible skill with the bow and arrow, everyone called him Jebe, and his real name had long been forgotten. So according to Mongol records, when he first entered Temujin's tribe, Jebe gave his name as Jigade. "So, you are a friend of his?" Jebe shouted at Bogurchi. "Then I guess I'll kill you first." This remark caused all of the Mongol soldiers to let out an audible laugh, for every one of them knew that Bogurchi was unbeatable as a fighter, and was famous throughout the entire steppe. Even though they saw how great Jebe was with the bow, claiming to be able to kill Bogurchi was just a bit too much for them to stomach. Now, we have a flashback here. Back when Temujin was still a boy, he was once captured by the Taijuts, who placed him in a wooden neck collar. The many tribes of the Taijuts gathered at the Onon River to celebrate by drinking and whipping him at the same time. After the gatherers were sufficiently drunk, Temujin knocked his guard unconscious with his collar and escaped into the nearby woods. The taijutsu conducted a massive search trying to find him. It was then that he met a young man named Qi Laoen, who, in spite of the enormous danger, took him into his house. It was Qi Laoen who smashed the collar off of him and threw it in the fire. And it was also Qi Laoen who hid him in a cart of fleece. When the taijutsu scouts came around and searched I can't do it. Qi Laoen's house, they came up upon the cart of fleece and began to take it off layer by layer. Just as Temujin's feet were going to be revealed, Jilaoen's father, suddenly interrupted. Oh, such a hot day. How could anyone hide in a pile of fleece? If he did, he's probably roasted to death by now. It was dead in the middle of summer, and everyone was sweating profusely. The scouts thought that what he said made sense and didn't look any further. These are terrible scouts. Temujin's life was filled with dangerous moments and close calls, but this was the most dangerous and closest call of them all. After he ran away, Temujin lived a squalid existence along with his mother and brother, and they were forced to rely on captured prairie squirrels and marmots to survive. One day, the 8 white horses that Temujin had were stolen by a small group of thieves from the Taijut tribe. As Temujin rode after them all by himself, he ran into another young man who was milking his horse. When Temujin stopped to inquire about the thieves, he learned that the young man's name was Bogurchi. Our lives are full of the same hardships, Bogurchi said. Let's be friends. The two of them rode off together. It was 3 days before they finally caught up to the thieving tribe. The two of them, by themselves, took on a couple hundred foes and took back those 8 horses. Temujin offered to split the horses with him and asked him how many he wanted. Okay, let's give him a deep voice. I did this as a friend, so I won't take a single one, was Bogurchi's answer. From that day forth, the two of them worked together, and Temujin continued to insist on calling him his good friend. Theirs was a true friendship forged in times of trouble. Bogurchi and Chilaoen, together with Mu, Chali, and Borochu, were the 4 foremost founding generals of the Mongolian Empire. Knowing how great Bogurchi was with the bow, Temujin handed his own bow to Bogurchi and hopped off his white colt. Ride my horse. Use my bow and arrows. Then it'll be as if I killed him. Yes, sir. Bogurchi hopped onto Temujin's treasured horse with bow and arrows in hand. Turning to Ogadai, he said, Let Jeb use your horse. Well, lucky him, Ogadai commented before hopping off and ordering a guard to walk the horse over to Jeb. I am already surrounded, Jeb turned to Temujin after securing himself onto the saddle. If you wanted to kill me, it would have been easier than killing a sheep. Since you have already showed mercy by letting me duel him with the bow, I dare not ask for anything more. Therefore, I only ask for a bow and no arrows. No arrows? Bogurchi shouted, feeling insulted. That's right. I can kill you with just a bow. Oh. This guy thinks he's a badass. Maybe he is. I hope this is setting up Bogurchi's humiliating defeat. It looks like it. It does look like it. This time, the laughter from the Mongolian soldiers was even louder. What a braggart! One of them shouted as Temujin ordered him to hand over his best bow to Jeb. Bogurchi had seen Jeb in action during battle and knew very well what a great marksman he was and didn't dare to take him lightly. However, with no arrows, how could Jeb apply his great skill? Bogurchi, knowing that Jeb must be planning to use the arrows that he himself shot, gave his horse a good squeeze with his legs, urging it into a gallop. Not only was this particular colt fast, it had been through many a battle and was especially perceptive to the whims of its rider. Because of this, Temujin had taken quite a liking to it. In response to the opponent's speed, Jebe pulled on the reins, making his horse slowly back up. Boguchi fitted an arrow onto the bow, aiming directly at Jebe's face, and let loose. Jebe tilted his body and with incredible hand-eye coordination grabbed the arrow by the shaft out of mid-air. "Wow, that's good," Boguchi muttered under his breath and shot another arrow. Hearing the arrow's feathers slicing through the air, Jebe knew that he would not be able to catch this one. He leaned forward, laying his body flat against the neck of the horse. The arrow flew over his head, barely missing grazing him. Immediately, he made his horse gallop forward with a little kick and sat back up. But what he didn't know was that Boguchi was a master at shooting arrows one after another, and 2 more arrows bore down on him. Not expecting such skill from his foe, Jebe was forced to immediately slip off his saddle, and hooking his right foot through the stirrup, leaned almost to the ground. The horse was still galloping at full speed, making it look like there was a dancing bird at its side. Jebe twisted his body around. He had already loaded that arrow he had just caught onto the bow when he was barely half around, and let loose, aiming at Boguchi's belly. Then he immediately flipped back up onto the saddle. Ooh. "Excellent!" Boguchi shouted as he aimed at the coming arrow and let loose. The 2 arrows met nearly head-on and shot off in different directions before both arrows, still carrying great force, stuck into the ground with their feathers up. Damn. He shot an arrow at another arrow, and he hit it. The exchange caused Temujin and all the other spectators to cheer in amazement. Boguchi feigned shooting to the left, waited until Jebe reacted to the right, before suddenly letting off a shot towards the right. Jebe flicked his bow with his left hand and knocked the arrow down onto the ground. Boguchi followed with another 3 shots, all of which were dodged by Jebe. Jebe, speeding his horse up, suddenly slipped off the saddle, reached down, picked up 3 arrows off the ground, sat back up, and shot one of them all in one motion. Wanting to show off a bit of his own skills, Boguchi jumped onto his saddle. Keeping his balance with his left leg, he kicked away the arrow with his right foot. Then, still standing, he used the height advantage and let loose an especially fierce shot. Jebe pulled his horse to the side to dodge the shot and responded with another, which, with a crack, split the arrow that Boguchi had shot in half along the shaft. "He doesn't even have any arrows, and yet we are fighting to a draw up until now. How can I get revenge for the Khan?" Boguchi thought to himself. Getting impatient, Boguchi began to shoot arrows one after another non-stop, so much so that it all became a blur to the spectators. Not having enough time to grab the arrows, Jebe was forced into just dodging them. However, the arrows just kept on flying in, and they kept on getting faster and more numerous until finally he was hit in his left shoulder. Seeing this, everyone present cheered in unison. Ecstatic, Boguchi was just about to shoot several more arrows and end Jebe's life when he reached down into his arrow bag and came up empty. He had actually used up all of his arrows while he was showering Jebe with them. He always brought a tremendous number of arrows with him when he entered a battle. 2 quivers on his side and 6 more on the horse, for a total of 8 quivers filled with arrows. However, this time he was using the Khan's own supply of arrows, and in the midst of battle, he had forgotten that there was a limit on arrows, and resorted to his habitual way of using them. Shocked to discover that he had used up all of his arrows, he immediately turned his horse around and reached down to pick up some arrows from the ground. Clearly seeing all of this, Jebe pounced on the opportunity. Before the sound of the arrow piercing through the air had faded from everyone's ears, the arrow had already hit Bogurchi's back, right where his heart was. The spectators gasped in shock, but strangely, even though his arrow was shot with great force and caused a wave of pain to shoot through Bogurchi's back, it didn't penetrate his clothing and fell off onto the ground. Bogurchi reached down, picked up the arrow, and inspected it. It turned out that Jebe had actually taken off the arrowhead as a show of mercy. Ooh. He flipped himself back onto the saddle and shouted, "I am seeking revenge for my Khan. I don't need your mercy." I, Jebe, never show any mercy to my enemies. That last arrow was to exchange one life for another. When he saw Bogurchi hit, Temujin was devastated. However, now that he realized that Bogurchi was not dying, he was overjoyed. At this moment, he would have absolutely been willing to trade all of the sheep, oxen, and horses in his tribe in exchange for Bogurchi's life without the slightest bit of hesitation. Hearing Jebe's remark, he immediately answered, "All right. There's no need to go any further. You let him go, so I'm letting you go. His life for your life." "I'm not asking to exchange my life for his life." "What then?" Temujin was puzzled. I'm asking for an exchange for his life," Jebe answered, pointing at Guo Jing, who was standing by the door of the hut. "I ask that the Khan not trouble this boy further. As for me," he continued, raising one of his eyebrows higher, "I wounded the Khan and deserve whatever punishment that comes to me. Bogurchi, come on." He wants to continue. As he finished, he pulled the arrow from his shoulder and, with blood still dripping off of it, fitted it onto his bow. By now, Bogurchi's underlings had resupplied him with 6 more quivers of arrows. Oh no. He has an unlimited supply now. "All right, let's try this again," Bogurchi replied as he showered Jebe with arrows. The arrows were coming in so fast that they seemed almost connected, creating a chain of arrows in the air. It's like a machine gun. Seeing the situation, Jebe, holding himself up by hooking his front through the stirrup, flipped himself beneath his horse's belly. Leaning sideways so as not to hit the ground, he aimed and fired a shot at Bogurchi's stomach. The white colt, not waiting for his master to pull the reins, instinctively dodged to the left. Unfortunately, the shot from Jebe was much faster than any normal shot, and the colt was not able to get out of the way in time. With a thud, the arrow hit the colt in the head and instantly brought it down. Oh, it's a prized horse, too. Lying on the ground, Bogurchi dared not risk Jebe shooting a follow-up shot. He immediately twisted around and fired another shot, snapping the bow in Jebe's hand. Losing his weapon, Jebe cursed the fact that he wasn't able to fight back any longer, and he had to resort to zigzagging in an effort to dodge Bogurchi's shots. The Mongolian soldiers present all began to shout and cheer for Bogurchi as he loaded another arrow into the bow. "He really is quite a hero," Bogurchi thought as he aimed for Jebe's back and let loose. A great marksman never misses when it matters, and this arrow hit Jebe on the back of his head. Jebe's body shook, and he fell off the horse, the arrow falling onto his side. Bogurchi, not able to bring himself to kill such a hero, had also taken the arrowhead off his arrow. Bogurchi loaded another arrow onto his bow and aimed at Jebe before turning towards Temujin. "Great Khan, I ask you to show mercy and let him go." By now, Temujin had grown to admire Jebe's courage and skill, so he shouted, "Are you still not going to surrender?" Seeing Temujin sitting there in all his glory and magnificence, Jebe was suddenly won over. He ran over as fast as he could and, with his head lowered, knelt in front of Temujin. Temujin let out a hearty laugh. Ha 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 ha. Wonderful, wonderful. From now on, you are with me. Yay. All right, guys. Take a 5-minute break. I'll be right back. And we're back. Yeah, that was some Mongolian throat singing for you guys. Sounds so badass. All right. So it looks like Jebe is joining Temujin's group. Mongolians frequently sang to express their They do they? I'm imagining them singing that song just now. Mongolians frequently sang to express their feelings and thoughts. At this moment, still kneeling on the ground, Jebe began to sing. Oh no. Oh, oh, great Khan, you showed me mercy and let me live. In the future, be it jumping into boiling water, or walking on fire, I will do it. I would cross the Black Seas and crush the mountains to protect the great Khan. Conquering foes, digging out their hearts. Just ask of me and I will do it. For the Khan, I would lead charges and run 1,000,000 li a day. Ecstatic at the turn of events, Temujin took out 2 gold ingots and gave one each to Bogurchi and Jebe. Jebe thanked him and asked, Great Khan, is it permitted that I give this ingot to that boy? My gold I can give to whoever I want, Temujin replied with a smile. Your gold you can give to whoever you want. Jebe walked over to Guo Jing and held out the ingot, but Guo Jing just shook his head. Mom said that helping guests is the right thing to do, and that it's wrong to take anything from guests. Temujin had grown to like Guo Jing because of the unyielding toughness the boy showed earlier. Hearing those words now, he liked Guo Jing even more. Bring the boy into our tribe as well, he instructed Jebe before leading the soldiers back. Several of the soldiers stayed behind to put the white colt's corpse on the backs of 2 horses before leaving as well. Able to save his own life and find a master at the same time, Jebe was overjoyed and tired, so he lay down on the ground, rested until Li Ping returned from the market, and explained to her what had happened. Now that's a good son, Li Ping said to Guo Jing, upon hearing of how courageous and loyal he was, even though she was greatly distressed by all the wounds on his face. That's how a man should act and behave. She figured that joining the army and going through the vigorous training would be much better for Guo Jing than shepherding, especially if Guo Jing was to avenge his father. Oh, still thinking of it, huh? So the mother and son followed Jebe into Temujin's tribe. Temujin made Jebe a squad leader under the command of his 3rd son, Ogadai. After meeting with the 3rd prince, Jebe met up with Bogurchi. Fueled by mutual respect, the 2 of them became fast friends. Feeling he owed Guo Jing a debt of gratitude, Jebe took great care in looking after the mother and son. He decided that he would begin teaching Guo Jing about the bow as soon as Guo Jing got a little older. On one particular day, Guo Jing was just tossing some rocks around with a couple of Mongolian kids when they saw 2 Mongolian riders flying into the camp, obviously carrying urgent news for the Khan. Not long after the 2 riders had entered Temujin's gur, the horn started to sound, causing the soldiers to pour out of their gurs. Temujin had an iron fist when it came to the training and discipline of his army. 10 soldiers were organized into a squad, which was led by a squad leader. The squads were ordered into platoons made up of 10 squads that were led by a 100-man commander. 10 100-man groups were led by a 1,000-man commander, which were then organized under one of the few 10,000-man commanders. When Temujin gave an order, it was as if he just moved his fingers, and no order was disobeyed or not carried out. As Guo Jing and the other children looked on, and at the end of the first blow of the horns, all the soldiers had already picked up their weapons and mounted their horses. When the horns sounded for the second time, the world shook from the sound of men and beasts moving. By the time the third sounding of the horns came to a stop, the plain just outside of the main gates of the encampment was covered with some 50,000 mounted men and soldiers in formation. Other than the snorting of horses, there wasn't another sound, neither chattering noises of conversations nor any sounds of weapons colliding. Temujin, escorted closely behind by his 3 eldest sons, walked out of the main gate. We have beaten many foes, and news of our feats has reached the great Jin Empire, he shouted at the top of his lungs. At this moment, the great Emperor of the Jin has sent the 3rd Prince and 6th Prince here to officially anoint your Khan as a Jin officer. The soldiers, in unison, raised their sabers and shouted with joy. At that time, the Jin controlled northern China with a fierce and strong army. Their empire was famous and powerful. On the other hand, the Mongols were just a small tribe among many in the middle of the steppe. That was the reason why Temujin would feel honored to be an official of the Jin Empire. Temujin ordered the eldest son Jochi to take 10,000 men with him to welcome and escort the guests, while the other 40,000 men lined up in formation, waiting. In reality, the Jurchen emperor at the time, Wanyan Jing, who took the title of Zhang, was apprehensive of the growing power of some of the tribes on the steppes, such as Temujin's tribe, the Togril, Ong Khan's tribe, and the Karates. Fearing that his northern neighbors would grow to be troublesome, he sent the Prince of Rong, his 3rd son Wanyan Hongxi, and the Prince of Zhao, his 6th son Wanyan Honglie, to anoint the leaders as officers of Jin. But in addition to tightening the ties of the tribes to Jin and increasing tributes, the princes had another mission, to scout the tribes and make note of the weaknesses of each, so as to be able to gain the upper hand in case of future conflicts. The Prince of Zhao, Wenyan Honglie, was the same one that had traveled to Linan, was wounded by Chu Chuchi at Ox Village, and met the 7 freaks at Jiaxing. Guo Jing and the kids stood at a distance, trying to catch a glimpse of this happening. After a long wait, a cloud of dust appeared on the horizon as Zhou met up with Wenyan Hongxi and Wenyan Honglie. The Wenyan brothers had with them 10,000 elite soldiers, each wearing silk capes, iron armor, and carrying a spear in the left hand and a wolf fang club in the right, while riding on their horses. The clanging of the armor could be heard for many li around. As the army got closer, the silk shone, and the armor glowed even more under the bright sun, creating a spectacular scene. The 2 brothers approached shoulder to shoulder, while Temujin, his sons and generals, waited by the roadside to welcome them. Seeing Guo Jing and all the other kids standing there staring at him, Wenyan Hongxi burst out laughing. He reached into his shirt and took out a handful of gold coins and tossed them towards the crowd of kids. "A gift for you kids!" he shouted with a laugh, figuring that the kids would undoubtedly cheer and scramble around on the ground for the money, which would show off his own magnanimity and wealth. However, host-guest etiquette and respect was of utmost importance to the Mongolians. Not only were his actions inappropriate for the occasion, it was very disrespectful. The Mongol generals and soldiers were left aghast at his actions. Every one of the kids was a son or daughter of the Mongolian soldiers and generals. Even though they were little, each of them had a sense of self-respect. As a result, none of them picked up the coins. His joy dampened when Yan Hongxi tossed another handful of gold coins and shouted, "Come on, fight over them, little devils that you are!" Magnanimity? Me? Definition? Oh no. That's like phenomenon. I think magnanimity means generosity. Pretty sure. Magnanimity. Aha! Exactly. Generosity. This caused an even bigger stir upon the Mongols. Even though the Mongolians had no written language at the time and little culture, they placed a great deal of importance on politeness and respect, especially regarding guests. Mongolians traditionally never cursed, even when facing a lifelong nemesis or just joking around. When someone entered their gers, no matter if the person was a friend or not, that person would be treated with great respect and honor. By the same token, the guest must absolutely not disrespect his hosts either, for it was considered the greatest of insults. Was he also in Demigods and Semi-Devils? No, he wasn't. Wait, was he? No, he wasn't. Can't be, it's a different time. I think it was a Wenyan Hong Jie? Or something like that? What was the name of that guy? Can look it up. Demigods and semi-devils. Wenyan. Characters. I don't know, they'll tell you here. Wenyan Aguda. There you go. That was the guy in Demigods. Yeah, so Wenyan Honglia is, and Hongxie is his descendant. Even though Wenyan Hongxie shouted was in Jurchen and none of the Mongols understood it, everyone could tell that he was cursing at the kids from his body language and the tone of his voice. Constantly being told stories of how the Jin raped, pillaged, and stole from the people of China, of how the Jin corrupted officials and had Yue Fei killed. Guo Jing's young heart had long been filled with hatred for the Jin. Oh yeah, from his mother. Now, seeing how rude this Jin prince was, he picked up a couple of gold coins from the ground and, taking a little run, threw them at Wenyan Hongxie with all his might. Oh no. "Who would want your money?" he shouted. Wenyan Hongxie tilted his head sideways to avoid the coins, but nevertheless one of them hit him squarely on the cheekbone. Even though Guo Jing wasn't strong and it didn't really hurt, he was still made to look bad in front of tens of thousands of people. Every Mongolian from Temujin downwards cheered on the inside. Wenyan Hongxie was furious. When he was in China, he had many times killed people at the slightest displeasure. Never had he been humiliated like this. As his temper flared up, he grabbed a spear from the guard that was riding at his side and threw it at Guo Jing's chest with all his might and shouted, "You want to die, you little bastard?" I gave him a little British accent. "Third brother, no!" Wenyan Honglia shouted, knowing this was bad. But he was too late. The spear was already on its way. Just as it looked as if Guo Jing was about to die from the spear, an arrow suddenly shot out from the Mongolian army to the left. Like a meteor shooting around the moon, the arrow hit the spear dead on in the head with a loud bang. Packed with incredible strength, the arrow was able to deflect the spear away despite being many times lighter. Guo Jing immediately scrambled away. The Mongolian soldiers all cheered in unison, shaking the step. The person who shot the arrow was none other than Jebe. "Third brother, don't bother with him anymore," Wen Yanhonglia whispered to his brother. Seeing and hearing the might of the Mongolian army, Wen Yanhongxi was a bit shaken, so he just shot a mean look at Guo Jing and cursed under his breath. "Little bastard." At this point, Temujin and his retainers had come forth to formally welcome the two Jin princes, and took them into the main ger. There they served up kumis and vast quantities of beef and lamb. There were translators on both sides, translating between Jurchen and Mongolian. Wen Yanhongxi read the royal decree out loud, granting the title of the Northern Ambassador of the Empire of Jin to Temujin. Temujin, who knelt on the floor during the reading, humbly accepted the official document and the golden belt, which signified his allegiance to the Jin Emperor. Kumis is a very strong Mongolian alcoholic drink made from horse milk. Yum. Let's look it up. Yeah. Kumis. Looks scrumptious. Oh. Making kumis. That night, the Mongolians celebrated with a huge feast to entertain the honored emissaries. "Tomorrow, my brother and I are going to bestow a post on Ong Kang," Wen Yanhongxi, somewhat under the influence of kumis, said to Temujin. "Will the ambassador join us?" Temujin was overjoyed at the news and immediately agreed to come along. Ong Khan, a Togril, was the leader among the tribes on the steppe. His tribe was the richest and most powerful. Furthermore, he was a good man, always treating others as equals. It was no great exaggeration to say that he was respected and liked by every tribe. Ong Khan had once been the sworn brother of Temujin's father. After Temujin's father was poisoned by his enemies, and Temujin had nowhere to go, it was Ong Khan who took him as a stepson. Not long after Temujin was married, his wife was taken away by the Merkits. It was only because of Ong Khan and Jamuka, Temujin's sworn brother, joining him that he managed to defeat the Merkits and save his wife. That was the reason Temujin was elated upon hearing that Ong Khan would be granted a title as well. "Is the great Jin Empire going to grant titles to anyone else?" he asked. "No, that's all," Wan Yanhongxi replied. "But that's entirely because, up here in the north, there are only two great heroes, Ong Khan and the great Khan yourself." Wan Yanhonglia immediately added onto his brother's statement, "None of the others are worthy." "There is another person around here that perhaps your excellencies haven't heard of," Temujin replied. "Really? Who?" Wen Yanhonglia asked. "He just happens to be your humble servant's sworn brother, Jamuka. He's a righteous man who is very adept at commanding an army. I humbly request that the third prince and the sixth prince consider granting him a title as well." Another flashback. Temujin and Jamuka were childhood friends who grew up together, and at that time they became sworn brothers. When Mongolians become sworn brothers, they call it swearing anda, which was Mongolian for sworn brother. Mongolian traditions dictates that when swearing anda, the sides must exchange gifts. At the time, Jamuka gave Temujin a granite stone that resembled a deer thigh bone, while Temujin gave Jamuka a granite stone that looked like it was made of brass. Mongolians use small granite rocks to hunt rabbits, but Mongolian kids often played catch with them and competed to see who threw them the furthest. After the two became Andas, they went and threw rocks on the frozen Onan River. The next spring, while the two of them were shooting arrows with their own little wooden bows, Jamuka gave Temujin a noisy arrowhead that he carved himself using two little ox horns. Temujin returned the gift with a cypress-tipped arrowhead, and the two of them swore to become Anda once more. So noisy arrowheads are arrowheads that are carved with slits in them so that they made a loud screeching noise once they were shot. These arrows were often used to relay messages and orders in battle. After they grew up, both of them lived with Ong Khan's tribe and were still very close. Every day they would compete to see who got up earlier. Whichever one got up earlier would get to drink 1 cup of kumis out of Ong Khan's own jade cup. After Temujin's wife was kidnapped and was rescued with the combined help of Jamuka and Ong Khan, Temujin and Jamuka exchanged gold and horses and became sworn Anda to each other for a third time. The two of them drank out of the same cup in the day and slept in the same gur at night. However, having to migrate with the changing weather and rain, they and their tribes parted. As Temujin's tribe rose in fame and power, Jamuka's tribe was growing nonstop as well. Their friendship was still as strong as ever and was deeper than blood brothers. That's why Temujin, realizing that his brother was not being honored, would ask for him to be honored as well. There are so many Mongolians. Where can we find all the titles if we give one to each of them? How many titles do you think we have? Wenyan Hongxie, half drunk, casually answered back without much thought. Wenyan Honglie shot his brother numerous meaningful looks, trying to get him to stop, but was ignored. Feeling slighted because of the remark, Temujin offered, "Might your excellencies consider giving your humble servant's title to him instead?" Are you belittling the titles of the great empire of the Jin? Wenyan Hongxie smacked his leg and shouted. Temujin slammed his palm down on his table and stood up in anger. Finally, barely holding back his fury, he did not say another word and grabbed his cup and drank its conger in one gulp. Wenyan Honglie immediately told a joke and changed the subject. Wait, what was the joke? Tell me. No. Don't tease me like that. The next morning, Temujin and his 4 sons organized 5,000 troops to escort Wenyan Hongxie and Wenyan Honglie to Ong Khan. By the time the sun was barely peeking over the distant horizon, Temujin had already mounted his horse, and the 5,000 soldiers had already lined up in perfect formation. The Jurchen soldiers and generals, however, were still fast asleep. It was a good one, you bet? I don't know. At first, Temujin was impressed by the Jurchen army's grandeur and organization, but after seeing what an undisciplined and fun-seeking group they were, he humphed and turned to Mukali. What do you think of the Jin army? 1,000 of us Mongolian troops can defeat 5,000 of theirs, Mukali observed. I've thought so too, Temujin replied with a smile. But it's said that the Jin Empire has an army of over 1 million strong. We only have 50,000. 1 million troops can't enter battle all at once, Mukali responded. Divide and conquer. We can take down 10,000 today, and then sweep over another 10,000 tomorrow. When it comes to military strategy, your opinions are always the same as mine. Temujin smiled and patted him on the shoulder. A 50-kilogram man can eat 10 cows that weigh over 10,000 kilograms. He just won't do it in one day. The two men burst out in laughter. Ha ha ha. Well, there's a joke. At least he didn't tease us there. Temujin settled back straight in his saddle and suddenly saw that Tolui's horse was riderless. "Where's Tolui?" he shouted in fury. Tolui was just 9 years old, but Temujin had always been a harsh disciplinarian, whether he was training troops or bringing up sons. He never showed mercy to anyone who violated his rules. With him shouting so loudly in anger, all the generals and troops immediately got a bad feeling in their stomachs. General Borokul, Tolui's mentor, almost panicked and offered, "The kid has never overslept before. Let me check." Just as he turned his horse to gallop off to search for Tolui, he saw 2 kids come running up hand in hand. One of them, with a silk bandana on his head, was Tolui, while the other turned out to be Guo Jing. Tolui ran straight towards his father and shouted, "Dad!" "Where were you?" Temujin demanded in a harsh tone. "Guo Jing and I just became Andas down by the river. Look, this is what he gave me," Tolui replied, waving a red handkerchief with a flower embroidered on it in the air. It was something that Li Ping made for Guo Jing. Reminded of the time he and Jamuka became Andas as kids, Temujin's face immediately became calm. "And what did you give him?" he asked the 2 cute and innocent kids standing in front of him. "This," Guo Jing replied, pointing to the top of his head, where Temujin saw the golden necklace that his youngest son often wore. "Now you 2 have to help and look after each other in the future. Do you hear?" Temujin said with a smile. Both of the kids nodded. "Now get on your horses," Temujin ordered. "Guo Jing can come with us too." Ecstatic, Guo Jing and Tolui both mounted their horses. Seems like the Q in Romanized Mongolian words are pronounced like the CH in lock or the K in book. I see. Mukhali. After another period of waiting, the Wenyan brothers finally finished dressing and exited their gurs. Wenyan Honglia, seeing the Mongolian soldiers were already in formation, immediately ordered his soldiers to fall in. However, Wenyan Hongxi, determined to put the Mongolians in their place, took his time slowly drinking several cups of wine and ate a little breakfast before finally climbing onto his horse. After another hour of general chaos, the 10,000 Jin troops were finally in formations. The army marched northwards for 6 days before meeting up with Ong Khan's welcoming committee, comprised of Ong Khan's son, Sengum, and adopted son, Jamuka. Upon hearing that Jamuka was here, Temujin immediately rode forth to meet him. The 2 men hopped off their horses and bear-hugged each other. Every one of the Temujin's sons rode forth to greeting their adopted uncle as well. When Wenyan Honglia first laid eyes upon Jamuka, he saw a tall and skinny man with a few strands of gold in his mustache and a pair of eyes that were filled with energy and enthusiasm. He looked strong and spirited. Sengum, on the other hand, was fat and pale, probably from living in luxury all of his life, and not at all like someone who grew up on the steppe. Not only that, he had an arrogant look on his face and seemingly ignored Temujin whenever he felt like it, a stark contrast to the warmth of Jamuka. Another day of riding, they were very close to Ong Khan's encampment when 2 of Temujin's advanced scouts suddenly returned with news. "There are Naimans blocking the way ahead. About 30,000 of them," they reported. "What do they want?" Wenyan Hongxia asked, panicking a bit after hearing the news through his translator. "From the looks of it, they want to fight," the scouts reported. They really have 30,000 troops," Wenyan Hongxia stuttered. That's more than us. This... Go and find out what's going on, Temujin ordered Mukhali, not waiting for Wen Yan Hongxie to finish his sentence. Mukhali headed off with 10 bodyguards, while the rest of them stopped and waited. Mukhali returned not long after. The Naiman said that since the great Jin princes granted a title to our Khan, they want to be granted a title too, he reported. If not, then they say they will take your excellencies, the princes, as hostages, until they too are granted titles from the great Jin Empire. They also said that they want a title that's higher than our Khan Temujin's. Demanding titles by force? That's rebellion. What do we do? Wen Yan Hongxie's face went pale on hearing this news. Wen Yan Honglia began organizing troops into fighting positions in case of any unexpected escalations. Brother, those Naimans frequently steal our livestock and cause trouble for us. Are we really going to let them get away with this? Jamuka said to Temujin. I don't know what the Jin princes would have us do. By now, Temujin had thoroughly surveyed the surrounding landscape and was confident of victory. Let's show the princes how the two of us do things around here, he replied to Jamuka, before letting out a howl and cracking his whip in the air twice, causing the 5,000 Mongolian soldiers to simultaneously howl in response and startling the unprepared Wen Yan brothers. A cloud of dust had appeared ahead as the enemy slowly approached, forcing the advanced scouts to return. Brother, order our boys to charge, now, Wen Yan Hongxie said. These Mongols are of no use now. Let them fight first, Wen Yan Honglia whispered back. Immediately understanding his brother's intentions, Wen Yan Hongxie simply nodded and sat back. The Mongolian soldiers let out another loud shout, but did not move. What on earth are these Mongols doing, shouting like rabid dogs? Wen Yan Hongxie frowned. It's not like they are going to scare the enemy away, no matter how loud they are. On the left side of the formation was Boroku. Follow me, and don't fall behind. See how we defeat our foes, he instructed Tolui, who, along with Guo Jing, were shouting at the top of their lungs, just like the others. In a heartbeat, the approaching army emerged out of the cloud of dust, only a few paces away. Yet the Mongolians still did nothing but shout. This time it was Wen Yan Honglia who got nervous, seeing how spirited the Naimans were. Fearing his formation would be broken if they continued unimpeded, he ordered, Fire arrows! The Jin army discharged several volleys, but because of the distance between the two armies, most of the arrows fell onto the ground before reaching the enemy. Frightened by the ferociousness showing on his enemies' faces as they gritted their teeth and charged at full speed, Wen Yan Hongxie began to panic. Why don't we just give them what they want? Give them some bullshit title and be done with all this. Oh, so now all of a sudden you have a bunch of titles to give away, huh? He turned around and suggested to Wen Yan Honglia, So what if the title is a little big? It's not like we are going to lose anything. Suddenly, Temujin cracked his whip in the air several times. The Mongolian army immediately stopped shouting and split into two groups. Temujin and Jamuka, each leading a wing, immediately heading towards the high ground on either side. The two of them leaned down into their horses and galloped along with their troops, shouting out orders as they rode. The Mongolian troops split up into smaller and smaller groups so that, in a very short amount of time, they occupied the high ground in every direction. With the height advantage, the Mongols loaded arrows onto their bows and aimed at the opposing army, but not firing. The leader of the Naimans, sensing that he was in a disadvantageous position, ordered his troops to head straight for the high ground. The Mongolian troops set up soft walls made of several layers of fleece to shield themselves from arrows. The bowmen shot from behind the walls as the troops stationed on nearby high ground fired arrows in support as well. With the enemy on either side of them, confusion descended upon the Naimans as they tried to attack both sides. Jaume, attack the rear, Temujin shouted, seeing the opposing army had become disorganized from his position on the left. With a huge saber in hand, Jaume led a group of 1,000 soldiers down in a charge and cut off the enemy's retreat. Jebe, determined to slay the enemy general in order to show his gratitude to Temujin for sparing his life, was at the front of the charge with his spear sticking out in front of everyone. Being hit head-on by a charge like this, the Naiman rear collapsed in chaos, and their forward units were shaken as well. The Naiman general was at a loss as to what to do next, when Jamuka and Sengam began to charge down from their positions as well. Attacked from both sides, the Naiman army completely collapsed before long. The leading general turned around and tried to escape, followed by several retainers as they headed back in the directions they had come from. Jaume didn't order a pursuit and let most of the opposing army go by. Only when there were around 2,000 enemies left did he order his army to charge out and block their retreat. With nowhere to go, the brave Naiman soldiers that were left either fought to the death or laid down their weapons and surrendered. In this brief battle, the Mongols killed over 1,000 foes and captured over 2,000 while sustaining only a little over 100 casualties. Temujin ordered all captives be stripped of their armor and split into 4 equal groups, one for the Wanyan brothers, one for his adopted father, Ong Khan, one for sworn brother Jamuka, and one for himself. All Mongolian families that had a relative die in battle received 5 horses and 5 captives as slaves as compensation. Only now did Wanyan Hongxi finally calm down from his fright. They want a title? Brother, why don't we give them a title? Why don't we give them the title of Ambassador of the Defeated Losers? Ha 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 ha. Oh, so funny guy. He could not stop talking about the battle that had just occurred. The Mongolian victory, in spite of being outnumbered, made Wanyan Honglia even more nervous than he was before the battle. At this moment, the only reason that our northern borders are safe is because the northern tribes are battling amongst themselves. If Temujin or Jamuka ever brought all the tribes on the steppe under their rule, our great Jin Empire would no longer have any peace, he thought to himself. Other things troubled him as well. Even though his own troop of 10,000 did not enter into battle, their formation began to waver when the Naimans initially charged, and there was fear on every one of their faces. The battle had not yet begun, but the outcome had already been determined. Such courage and efficiency displayed by the Mongolians represented a huge threat in the future. He was still pondering things over in his mind when a cloud of dust appeared up ahead as another army approached. Woo! Ah, that was a long chapter. How did you guys like it? You doubt that'll happen? Yeah. They're steppe tribes, they'll never unite. Never gonna happen. Alright. Alright, cheers, guys. There is a kind of peace in being brought to an end. Huh? That sounds a little bit dark. All right, guys. Yeah, that was a good chapter. Yeah, we see Guo Jing as a little kid, a cute little boy. Okay. I wonder how he's going to grow up. And I wonder where the other kid is. Hmm? What is he doing? Or she? What is... And how they're going to meet? Little Guo grabbing the toy bow was great. Yeah, true. Where's Chu Chu Chi? He's a bit late. Well, the 7 freaks haven't caught up to Guo Jing yet either. So we don't know who's winning the bet at the moment. Maybe neither of them. Yeah. But they're bound to find them at some point, right? And then we'll see what happens. You like how the snack came back at the end? Gotcha. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. All right. I hope you join next time. It's getting good. It's getting to the main story, so I'm excited. Temujin is pretty badass. So I like that too. All right, guys. Thanks for coming. I love you, and I will see you next time. Bye.